to really understand the future of our world, our future of our economy, you got to come to China. Everyone, welcome to China's cyberpunk city. This is actually the cyberpunk city of the entire world. We're here in beautiful Chongqing, China with Alex from Reporterfy Media. How you doing, my friend?
Amazes me how much this city changes and the locations that we find all the time. But, you know, I think today is quite special. It's the CPC 105 celebration for this country and its people, and it's a different China every time we arrive here.
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the cool things with China is that it's constantly changing. You know, change is such a big part of the culture here. You think about, you know, just 10 years ago, cash dominated the society. Everybody was using cash. Now, you know, the entire society has slipped to a digital currency. I mean, there you have, you know, everything's in your digital wallets. You basically run your entire, you know, world through your cell phone, through WeChat. It's quite incredible. But I think, you know, what's really important, Alex, is for more people around the world to really understand the future of our world, our future of our economy. You got to come to China. I mean, this is the largest economy in the world in terms of purchasing parity, purchasing power parity. Mm-hmm. And yeah, if you're not in China, you're missing out on a big story for the future of the world.
But I mean, if you think about it, there still is a narrative about China and a stereotype about China.
Yeah.
Now, I think that is slowly going away with, look at this city here. I mean, with tourists that are coming to the city, I've never seen anything like it. It changes the whole landscape of the city.
Well, I think what's amazing is, you know, we've seen China go visa-free. You know, 85 countries around the world can come visa-free. And what's incredible, Alex, I was 2 years ago last in Chongqing. I've come now. We're in a very popular tourist area here. You can see the beautiful lights around us. You can see this, you know, thriving marketplace. Loads of foreigners around here. It's actually really amazing to see. And I know that you've played a really big part in that, you know, putting Chongqing on the map. And I think what's so awesome is this genuine curiosity of people around the world, seeing the Instagram photos, seeing the, you know, the bright lights and just really this vibrant energy that's in this city. And so many people are here to come and see, you know, what is China about in 2026?
I think also something that we need to bring up is the trust in China brands now.
Yeah.
That is shifting. We're starting to see common name DJI, people talking. Right. Oh yeah, I got a DJI camera. Yep. Sorry, what? Yeah. You're in America, or you're in Canada, you're in the United Kingdom. The DJI brand or the China brand that used to be made in China, where people would say cheap Chinese goods, are now making their way into the storefronts of North American buyers.
Yeah.
And that is going to have, now that's the hardware side. We're going to talk about the software stuff in a bit here. But you see, even, you know, as we approach, we see some more foreigners here that are trying out a Chinese brand. What brand would that be? Is that even a Korean or is it?
No, that's the number one fast food restaurant brand in the world right now. This is actually really popular in China called Mingxue.
Let's stop and have a look at it. What's it called?
这个中文名叫什么？叫Mingxue。
蜜雪冰城。
叫什么？
蜜雪。
蜜。
M-I。
对，蜜雪。
蜜雪。
对，这个是冰淇淋的，对吧？
奶茶。
奶茶。
也有冰淇淋。
Yeah. 蜜雪。Yeah, so this is actually the number one brand, and actually it's like a Chinese milk tea. Super popular. I think it actually is overtaken. Like there's so many of these stalls. They actually opened one in New York City.
Yeah, let's go have a look here. I just want to show you guys, you know, in other parts of the world, you might come out for a coffee and think, do I take a taxi home or do I have enough to take a coffee home?
Right.
I mean, if you go to a Starbucks in some cities in North America, it could be $6, $7, $8, $9, right?
Yeah, easy.
So if you have a look here on the prices, I can just see them below the menu. Let's go have a look. This is quite affordable when you think about it, right? 5, 6 RMB.
Yeah, basically the most expensive thing on the menu is $1 US. pretty awesome.
So as we continue, you're going to see more brands that start to really resonate in your mind here. Like, look at this, Luckin Coffee, right? Now, Luckin Coffee behind us here just recently started to open up shops in New York.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's an understanding that, okay, I would call this, I don't know if you know these airlines in Europe, but the EasyJet.
Yeah.
I call this the Ryanair of coffee.
Oh, nice.
It's
like
stripped back, it's grab and go.
Yeah.
Just give me my coffee and I'm out. Now, some people might say, oh, but I want the Starbucks experience. I want that. Well, you can get that with brands here.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's Starbucks here.
I mean, Luckin Coffee has been one of the most successful brands in China. It's actually incredible, their story, because what they wanted to do was compete against directly from Starbucks. And you look at that Starbucks model, right? Starbucks modeled their entire business off of being the third place, right? You have the home, you have work. Starbucks is that third place where we gather and we sit. So you need a very large storefront. So the way that they really captured the market is that they really focused on, ordering out. And most, as you can see, this one does not have any storefront. You can't sit and have a coffee there. It's grab and go, tons of deliveries. But they've been able to expand so fast because they need a much smaller retail presence, and then they can open up a lot more stores. And they've been able to really take that market share from Starbucks and create a thriving business.
Now, you mentioned delivery. I'm going to bring it up because I don't realize how important delivery service here in China is and how it became so popular. Of course, the world was in a pandemic a few years back, but this skyrocketed this industry.
For sure.
These were the true heroes of the streets that were bringing the food to people, getting it around. Now, have a look at this. We are here on a just regular evening here in Chongqing. These bikes are everywhere, okay? This guy has, well, what kind of service is here? We got a delivery service, right?
Yeah.
Probably a delivery service. These bikes are everywhere. They're on the streets, they're on the roads, they're delivering. You'll see these guys in the elevator all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're consistently going, I would say, pretty much around the clock.
Absolutely.
Now, what I recently had a discussion with a gentleman. He says, listen, I can open up a company here in China. I can connect my business to the Meituan app.
Right.
And immediately I have a delivery fleet in a city of 36 million people overnight.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think that's really speaks to the China speed and the China infrastructure and basically how you can get connected in very simply to this ecosystem that is uniquely Chinese.
Well, also uniquely Chinese, and it also lowers the barrier of risk. When you think about it, when you want to open up a company in the world, what's it going to cost you for staffing? What it's going to cost you for zoning, your own staff, your own delivery drivers, your own infrastructure.
Right.
Again, cities like Chongqing, I believe to open up a company here, it's free.
Yeah. Very big entrepreneurial push from the Chinese government, letting people open up. I mean, that's something you probably don't hear about in the West. We always have these stereotypes of China, right? That it's a closed society, that the Chinese government is overreaching, there's no freedom, people, don't have as many opportunities. But actually, it's really embraced the best things of the Western world, really bringing that capitalism and entrepreneurial opportunities, to everybody.
This is what we call a nighttime economy.
Yeah.
Now, what we see here is tourists, lots of different cultures, a lot of different tourism, and we're seeing families bringing their children out at this hour at the night. And the government really puts a focus not only on businesses from 9 to 5, but it really shows you how business is very, quite changing here. Now, we've talked about the mobile, let's talk about the mobile payments, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it is in the United States, but compared to here, how would you find the mobile payments and how it works?
Well, it's interesting. I still think in North America, generally speaking, we still have a lot of people that do prefer to use cash. It's still part of that. I would say most transactions are done on credit cards. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting when you look at the Chinese, we talked about how fast Chinese people are very adaptable to change. And, Alex, if we go back again, if you think about a 60-year-old person in China, your typical 60-year-old person in China, they have experienced a tremendous amount of change, right? They would have been born in China during one of its poorest times. 60 years ago, China was one of the, least developed countries in the world, largely just a farmer's economy. But what you've seen now is this incredible rise of China. And so they've been able to see their worlds transform. If you're a 60-year-old person from Chongqing, you have seen this city grow up so fast and so become so modern and so developed. And so because of that culture and that history, they're very adaptable to change. So for example, when China was able to basically skip a generation, right? Instead of going from cash to credit cards, then to digital payments, they basically skipped credit cards, right? Credit cards are not big here in China at all. And so you basically go from cash, and we're gonna embrace the digital economy, right? We're gonna embrace having all of our bank accounts, everything linked to our phones. You have payment systems that use your hands. You can basically pay with your palm, you can pay with your face, lots of different things that are so fast, and they're really cool to even see the older generation, really embracing that, because again, this is what the Chinese people are accustomed to. They're accustomed to their country changing at remarkable speeds. And that's something that you often hear from many people living and working here, is the China speed, which is, again, probably the fastest and most efficient in the world.
I have to also take a look and say, wait a minute, how did we get here? Was this the will of the people, or was it the confidence of the people that they knew that they had a government that would support them, would put that, we'll say, bid below the surface and say, okay, we got you.
Right.
Go out, follow your ambitions, and follow your Chinese dream. Do you think that some of this is support from the government, or this is just 100% entrepreneurs doing this?
So I think you brought up a really interesting point. One of the things that we often hear is that, especially in Western media, right? We hear that the Chinese government is oppressive, that the Chinese government doesn't care about its people. And there's a kind of a narrative in the West, Alex, that, despite that, the Chinese people found a way to achieve some success.
Right.
I would agree that it very much is the Chinese government that's played a very large role, because like you said, they've put the foundation down. And that's why, when you actually travel to China, you're going to see a tremendous amount of support for the government, because again, you're that 60-year-old person. You've seen it go from here to there, right? If you're a young person, let's say that you're only 20 years old, really in your entire life, China's been a prosperous nation. It's been a modern nation. It's been a very developed nation. Now imagine these young children, got a little boy here, maybe 5, 6 years old. He's only going to know the most advanced modern China, right? He's going to only know mobile payment systems. He probably doesn't even know what cash looks like, because, even at that young age, he would probably be wearing a digital watch that his parents could send him his allowance to. He can scan it, go to the store, buy an ice cream, using his watch. And so, again, you're seeing that change, but I think that's an amazing thing. We are celebrating the 105th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party of China. But, I've traveled to probably 50 cities in China now. And when you get outside the big cities, Alex, you go to the 3rd, 4th, 5th tier cities, huge government support, because those are the cities that are actually been transformed the most, because that's where China realizes, look, we need to help these people out. I was in really rural part of China. They built this amazing bridge, was able to go through the rural countryside in the Guiyang province. And, the amount of schools that they've built, just modern schools, basketball courts, football fields, everything has been improved. And so it's awesome to see a government that genuinely cares about its people. I would challenge that narrative, because, when I look at my government in the United States, I look at how many billions of dollars we spend on funding wars and conflicts around the world.
Easy.
China has not been involved in a war since 1979. And when your government reinvests its resources into the people, into the infrastructure, this is what you get. You get an incredible city, and we're going to take you guys to some other really hot spots in China.
Let's head to another location.
So everybody, we're at Liberation Monument right here in the heart of downtown Chongqing. And Alex, tell me something special about this, because you just told me a fact that I think our viewers are going to be absolutely amazed by.
Yeah, in fact, Carl Zaw and I stood here just last year, the year before, and he was saying to me, as a child here growing up in Chongqing, 20 some years ago, that this was one of the tallest buildings here in the city.
Yeah.
And today, now it's surrounded by 100-story towers, just 2 to 3 decades later, similar to what happened in Shenzhen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's the story that we really want to kind of help our viewers out there understand, is just how much China is changing. And I think the other thing that's really amazing is when you look at the pride that Chinese people have, and I think that's a big shift, Alex. Because when I first came to China 20 years ago, Chinese people didn't want to buy Chinese products, right? Everything was fake, right? Like everybody wanted to buy foreign brands. Let's talk about something like a TV, Okay, I remember going to the local shop, buying a TV for my apartment in Shanghai, and they had the Sonys, the Panasonics. They had these foreign brands that sold really well. And I asked them, I said, do you have a Chinese version of a TV? And nobody really bought that. They said, yeah, local people don't like to buy that. And just in 20 years, how that's shifted. You've got, for example, Hisense, one of the best Chinese brands in the world, actually has. You think about how saturated that TV market is. They have now become the global player in TVs, actually dominating. You go to Costco in America, and you are filled with Hisense TVs, that are the best quality, amazing pricing. And so again, you're starting to see a total shift in the consumer here, where a lot of people, not only do they want to buy Chinese products, but they're very proud to have Chinese products, very proud to wear Chinese brands.
Xiaomi,
Xiaomi, great technology company. But the cool thing here is, you can see that, right? Like you said, Carl Zha, one of our great friends, comes on our program all the time. You look at Carl, he grew up in this city, 20, 30 years ago, total different area. And so you can imagine the pride that he would have saying, hey, I remember being a little 6-year-old boy standing at this Liberation Monument. And now, we've got designer stores, we've got amazing, skyscrapers all around us. That's a
big misconception there, where the Chinese have come to our shores and taken our markets or taken our companies. But if you look around here, you will see that there are some big names here that actually are European, American, selling to a Chinese consumer.
Oh, for sure.
So everybody's benefiting. It's a win-win.
Well, if you're a foreign brand, how would you not want to have access to this market, right? You have the fastest growing middle class in the world. That's been a huge effort from China's government, is, poverty alleviation, right? Taking literally 500 million people, actually probably more than that, but hundreds of millions of people from poverty into the middle class. That's what's created this opportunity for many foreign companies to be able to come here. You've got the Zegnas, the Rolex, you've got the Estee Lauders, the Pradas, the Guccis. You've got some of the biggest brands in the world, wanting to be in a city like Chongqing, and obviously many other cities around China as well.
And again, just as an example, we had security.
Yeah.
Does a person, do you feel safe right here?
Well, I got to be honest. I've never felt more safe anywhere in the world than, generally speaking, all of Asia is very safe. But, I think that's the nice thing here, Alex. When I travel to China, I bring my wife and kids. My kids enjoy a great freedom here where, you're always a little bit more vigilant, when you're with children in America. You have to be because of the society. It's a little bit more dangerous. But in China, it's very common to see young children, 7, 8 years old. They'll ride the metro by themselves.
Yeah.
They'll jump on the metro station. I was talking to a good friend of mine in Shenzhen. He said his daughter, 12 years old, she jumps in the metro, changes 3 lines. She'll go 45 minutes away, to go to a playground or do something, go to a park, and meet friends in different parts of the city. That is a very well-structured society that you have, because in my opinion, you want to talk about freedoms, you want to talk about universal rights. I think safety is by far the number one freedom in the world. If your society doesn't have that, then your government needs to go to work on that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's something that I think a lot of us take for granted. Like, again, I don't want to zero in on my country and Canada, but again, I just did a 360. I see everybody from the age of 8 to 80 years old here.
Yeah.
At this hour, smiles on the faces, curiosity.
Right.
As tourists or a person living here, they're curious about foreigners even coming to their city.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll stop, they'll look, they're not, staring, but they're like, because they have their perception or their vision of what our countries look like as well.
Right.
And I think if there's one thing that I could say to, the Chinese, you have a sense of security here, but don't let your guard down when you travel outside. You told me this a few years back, that you were concerned about Chinese that travel abroad from China for the first time.
Oh, for sure.
To some of these major North American cities.
Yeah.
That they think maybe it's just safe everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we see that in Europe. For example, a lot of Chinese tourists get targeted in cities like Paris and Rome. They know that they have money. They're traveling, they're buying, designer brands and stuff. So they become a target. But I think the amazing thing here is look at the energy here, right? This is a Thursday night. It's about 7:30 local time. We got thousands of people out. Beautiful part of the city. People are out and about walking. This is awesome, guys. This is so excited to take everybody, let's talk geopolitics on the road, here in beautiful Chongqing, China.
Here, let's go on to another phase I think is interesting. Now, we can agree that this country has definitely changed in even the last 5 years.
Yeah.
This is a city that has produced 1.3 million new energy vehicles this year. It is a major player on the global market now for new energy vehicles. It's amazing that we will start to see these come to the shores of North America now.
Yep.
And that is going to be a massive game changer. I think when these cars come to the shores of North America, they're going to make an impact. Now, you will hear headlines. We saw headlines today. You just said it. What was this? Something about Beijing? We talked about it in the car, where it's about something about Beijing is pushing these automobiles. Do you remember the headline?
Yeah, I mean, again, in Western media, it's interesting. The headline, I believe in Wall Street Journal or some type of foreign press was, Beijing's assault on the European auto market. And, essentially the Western headline is that, China's producing cheaper cars. They're trying to export those rapidly into European markets. And this is a direct problem, for these legacy car brands. But, the flip side of that, Alex, is let's go back in time. Again, 20 years ago, 2007, I mentioned earlier, Chinese people 20 years ago did not like to buy Chinese products. 20 years ago, Chinese people did not want to buy a Chinese car.
Very true.
And so, they would pay cash. They would want to have, for example, Buick, the American car, very popular, Volkswagen from Germany, BMW, Audi, all of these cars were very, very popular in China. But, within the next couple of years, they're going to be out of this market completely.
I agree. Now, let me add to that. We still see a fair amount of Teslas here. Tesla is still manufacturing here in Shanghai. And we saw the Teslas at the start here.
Right.
Now, domestically, they are slowing down in sales.
Right.
And that has something to do with, again, we'll go up this way here. That has something to do with brand awareness, brand curiosity, like names like BYD, who was a battery manufacturer. I don't know if you know this, but BYD has over 1 million employees. Of that 1 million employees, over 125,000 of them are in research and development.
Right.
So there's an investment there. China also has a policy about its batteries. One of its bigger companies called CATL, which I would say is the mothership for batteries here in China. CATL has an understanding that they want to be a non-competitive battery manufacturer. Basically, we're going to sell it to company A, B, C, D, E, F, G in China to allow them to get into the market so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel, don't have to reinvent R&D on these, and be fair. So if you're a manufacturer from Chery, if you're a manufacturer from Ito, you're a manufacturer from Series, you're a manufacturer from NIO, you have the catalog of CATL.
Right.
Now, CATL, they'll say, here's your batteries. So now what happens in China then, again, the government says, right, we're going to bring all these cars out. We need to have a universal plug-in.
Right.
We don't want to have, the VHS beta, Sony beta problem where does the audience go with the more popular and maybe leave the less popular Sony beta to die out in the...
Right.
So it's a similar example. So now we have the new energy vehicle market. It's matured. Now it's ready to spread its wings across the world. There have been warning shots. Look out, these cars are going to come. The headlines again, China's dumping its cars. China is polluting the car market. They're discounting.
Right.
They're, what's the key word? Overcapacity.
Overcapacity. It's an assault. It's an assault on the...
It's an assault. Or the other word that, the government is supporting the car market,
right,
to allow them to do that. Now, is a Canadian or American going to be upset that the cars are arriving cheaper on those shores? I don't think so. I think they're going to be embraced.
Right.
But here's the thing. You had a friend here or knew of a business guy that did know the automotive industry very well here.
Right.
Fish in a barrel 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
Anything American in the cars they would sell, right?
Right.
The tide has turned here. The Chinese have given these foreign manufacturers, the opportunity. Okay, guys, we're going all in on this.
Right.
Now, some companies have adapted. There's a German brake company. They've adapted. There's Pirelli tires. There's Michelin tires. There's Goodyear tires. They've adapted. The Chinese said, you know what? We don't need to invent the wheel if it's already been invented. There's great tires, great brake pads, but we do have better batteries.
Right.
Now, for architecture-wise or designing of cars, you should see the Europeans that they bring into designing these cars, right? So you could say that they are at an advantage right now. I think they are still at a point where they're saying, we still want to collaborate.
Yeah.
We want to collaborate with Ferrari.
Right.
We want to collaborate with Ford. We want to collaborate. And we see the message in North America is these cars are unreliable. They start on fire.
Right.
They're cheap Chinese products, and we're right back to the start. I would say the playbook of the American propaganda, where it's don't buy these cars. They're discounted. There's too many of them. So here we are. And I'm telling you, in the next couple of years, the entire automotive industry is going to change drastically.
Yeah.
Canadians better wake up. They're embracing 350,000 cars. Please have a look at them. Please understand what's behind them. And for all those manufacturing plants in eastern part of Canada, open your doors, do a collaboration. Who's to say that Tesla can't do a deal with BYD and do a car together?
Right.
Who's to say that Chery Automobile can't do a deal with Cadillac?
Right.
Nothing is stopping them. But if they put the blinders on and say, let's tariff the hell out of this, let's try to kill the market, it's not going to work.
Well, we've seen Donald Trump's tariff war, completely backfire. Basically, the idea there was if we tariff enough, we're going to cause these American manufacturers to, basically relocate their factories, reshore them. It's going to create a bunch of jobs, but it basically didn't pan out. And Trump had to abandon that plan and completely pivot.
I think we saw proof last week how it didn't pan out.
Yeah.
One of the largest software companies in the globe and hardware companies in the globe, Apple, which should have some serious bargaining power, should be able to handle, a little blip in pricing, especially the amount of trillions of dollars that they've sold over the years, has said, you know what, guys, we can't handle it. The prices are going up.
Right.
And there you are.
Yeah.
This is what happens. Supply chain is impacted. It's impacted where it goes all the way down the line. And again, all these wars, all these senseless wars, they all come out somewhere. Right. We may laugh and say, oh yeah, look, oil went up to 150, now it's down to 70, business as usual. Is it at the gas pump? Is it now that you're buying computers $200 more? Is it now that you're going to be buying food more expensive? Is it that maybe, I heard a huge amount of farmers are going to have a very difficult year in the United States due to not being able to buy economical fertilizer even for their crops.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I think we're at a point now where if you're not here in China, understanding this country and understanding where this economy is going, and the fact that the Chinese want to collaborate, if you're not collaborating with the Chinese in the future, you're going to get left behind. Because if we talk about Tesla and the success that they've had,
yes,
a big part of their story was really collaborating with the Chinese. And I have to give credit to Elon Musk. Yeah. He's a controversial figure. Some people love him, some people hate him. But the best thing that he ever did was that he actually came to China. He received those same government subsidies that Chinese companies did. But China was very smart because they realized, hey, if we can get Tesla inside our ecosystem, it's going to benefit our own domestic economy. And for Tesla, it's also a win because the Shanghai Gigafactory at one point was producing 50% of all Teslas in the world. So even some of those North American cars, those North American Teslas, they were made in a factory in Shanghai.
Yeah.
And it was a great vision from Elon Musk to be able to build his factory in Shanghai, really be able to be a part of this story. And so again, like you said, there are a lot of Teslas on the road here, but it's because, Elon Musk was able to get inside that ecosystem here. And I think it's an opportunity, so instead of, the headlines are going to tell you that China's government and the auto industry is trying to attack and assault the domestic car industries. No, it's simply price demand, right? It's simply supply and demand, basic economics, right? If I can buy a high quality car for a much cheaper price, American and Western consumers will always choose that lower price. Okay, and so we're seeing that in the AI industry as well. We'll talk about that later, but we're seeing this. And so again, if you're not here understanding what's happening on the ground in China, you're missing out a very big part of where that future economy is going to go.
As I stand here, Cyrus, I gotta say, 6 years in promoting this city, and I got a smile on my face because there are so many foreigners in this city.
Pretty awesome.
It's just unbelievable. I am very proud of what we've accomplished, especially on the Let's Talk Geopolitics show, and also what I've accomplished here working in media with the Western China International Communication Organization. But again, it's amazing. I've got no words for it to be standing here and be very proud to be part of that building block. And you are the ambassador of peace for America and China and around the world. So what we're going to do, guys, we're going to head on to one more location. We got a lot more stuff to talk about, and we'll see you guys there in a minute. Well, amazing city, new destination, new topic.
Yeah.
AI. Let's talk about AI.
Well, I mean, this is China's cyberpunk city, guys, and we got the Raffle Center behind us. This is one of the coolest boardwalks I've ever seen, Alex. I lived in Shanghai for many years. Beautiful Bund. But I think Chongqing takes the cake here.
You're gonna give it to us?
Oh, by far.
We got it? We got it? We finally got it.
Not only that, well, the cool thing is you've got the boulevard up on top, but I've never, here on the bottom, you got these amazing bars and restaurants, coffee shops.
If you see the front of the Raffles, it's designed as a sail.
Yes, kind of China leading into the future there. So one of the most important buildings in China, huge billion-dollar investment.
And the beautiful double truss bridges, the bridges that have the monorail and the subway underneath them. And then, of course, you got the financial district here in Chongqing.
You've got two massive rivers here, bridges, skyscrapers. The civil engineering required to build something like this is just simply incredible.
These are symbols that this country is, I would say, past its emerging stage now, leading the future.
Oh, absolutely. And, Alex, you mentioned AI. I think one of the important discussions that we need to talk about is the future of AI. There's a report that came out that analyzed the top 20% of AI researchers in the world, their country of origin, 50% are from China.
50%?
50% of the top 20 AI researchers worldwide. So what's interesting about that statistic is that obviously, that doesn't mean they're all in China. That just means their country of origin. So what you're seeing is other countries, like, for example, the United States, we see other countries, even Japan and many European countries, that they're moving forward in AI. A lot of those AI engineers are actually Chinese ethnicity. So, there's a joke we always say is, the future of AI is Chinese people in China versus Chinese people in America.
China is not going out there with big headlines.
Right.
And they're not discussing these huge IPOs and this, we need to get these headlines. They're doing it very quiet.
Well, I think, the interesting thing, Alex, when we talk about the AI race is, we always hear about America chasing AGI, and they want to have this, this amazing breakthrough where, essentially AI becomes its own person and it basically operates autonomously. And the issue is that if you go to America and you ask 10 different AI researchers, what does AGI mean to you? You're going to get 10 different answers. So it looks like what's happening right now in the United States is that you're almost chasing this unicorn, right? You're chasing something that we don't really know a target, right? It's a concept. Whereas when you come to China, AI is adapted much more into the local economy here.
Very much.
Right? And you have a much higher level of trust, right? Even in America right now, a lot of people are very skeptical of AI. We certainly don't trust these massive companies like OpenAI, Anthropic. We look at, the CEOs, we find them as distrustful people that are trying to, basically, misuse it and may just make a bunch of money with these absurd IPOs. But in China, there's actually a new government initiative that was just released, Alex, from the top. So this came from President Xi Jinping, that within the next 5 years, they have a 5-year plan, which we know is very common in China.
Very common.
But basically,
2 sessions.
Yeah, but the 5-year plan is basically that within the next 5 years, they're going to get AI across all levels of education throughout the school. So again, when we see China move forward with these AI plans, it's an absolute opportunity, for the country to, really unite together under a common purpose. And what you're going to see is, again, you're going to start seeing that so many different school-age children in every single level is going to be learning to include AI.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I think when we're talking about AI of the future, China's going to lead it. There's just no other way about it.
Yeah, another thing, like, you know, I've lived here for 6 years now working in media, and we saw AI come in. At first we said, okay, how is this going to help our industry? Is this going to be a disruptor to the industry? Is this going to push out graphic designers? Is this going to push out graphic artists? Is this going to change the editing process? But what we've discovered is it actually allows us to up our game a bit,
Right.
up our quality,
Right.
which allows us to be more creative in a way. So we use it as a tool of more enhancement
Correct.
and not as something like a replacement.
Right.
Because I have seen, you know, the VO3s, the interesting things where you can plug in a prompt and something will come out and you're, okay, that's interesting. I mean, that's all good. But I think in order for AI to be creative, the person has to be creative.
Yeah,
the
that's a good
creativity
point.
has to come from the person.
Right. You know, another big story that we saw this week that was very interesting is we actually saw Coinbase, which is one of the largest crypto financial service companies in the United States. They actually ditched their Anthropic and OpenAI platforms and switched to Chinese platforms.
Wow.
And the simple math on this, Alex, is actually quite fascinating. When these companies were running, when Coinbase was running their workload through OpenAI and Anthropic, it would cost them around $4,800 to run that workload through. By switching to the Chinese systems, they get almost an identical output for around $500. So you're talking, you know, basically same quality of product for 1/10 of the cost. But it goes back to this overcapacity. It goes back to the, these American AI CEOs. They have a different mentality, right? They want a closed system where you're going to have to pay a premium. You know, we don't want anybody else. Now you've got Anthropic CEO basically begging to lawmakers in the US, but we need help banning anything that's open source because we can't regulate it, guys. It's a security threat. Hearing the same thing. But the reality is we've got Airbnb just switched over to Quinn's Alibaba system.
I didn't know that.
Uber Eats just switched over as well. You got Microsoft just announced that they're testing DeepSeek version 4, which released in April. So you have, again, what we see here, we kind of bring it back to the analogy with the cars. You know, if you bring a Chinese electric vehicle to a North American market, no one will ask where does that, they're not going to care it's coming from China.
No.
Because they want good quality at a good price.
And no one cared about Japanese cars when they came. No one cared about Korean cars when they came.
Yeah.
No one cared about European cars when they came. In fact, as you say that and as you explain that, I used to look at European cars that used to come to Canada as more a luxury brand.
Correct.
A BMW.
For sure.
You know, Volvo was a very good brand coming out of Sweden.
Right.
You would see these brands, Lexus.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the brands come in, and the people, as you say, might not know it right now, but might understand that, okay, maybe an Ido M9 is the creme de la creme of new energy vehicles for SUVs.
Right.
Maybe the Xiaomi's sports car, the SU7, is the sports car for new energy vehicles. So it really changes the mentality of people that are so closed or have been told that this market is not there for them. The same can be said about iPhones, right? Where we'd say, oh, the Chinese can't produce anything, or we got to be very careful, the Chinese are going to copy it.
Right.
If China wanted to copy the iPhone, right,
Yep.
they could do it.
Right.
It's manufactured here.
Right. Right.
They could easily go in there and say, well, we know all the components in there, let's copy it.
Right.
They're okay with that.
Yeah.
They got their own mobility, they got Harmony, they got Huawei, they got Oppo. Oppo has a major manufacturing plant here in Chongqing, and we get on with things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the end of the thing that you need to really understand is, Alex, I think what's really funny is we hear this, another kind of common myth that we can break here is, the Chinese only know how to copy, they don't know how to innovate. And I mean, I don't know how you could build a city like this and not be able to innovate.
It's impressive, huh?
I would say it's actually, I'm going to go on the record, this is the most impressive, cityscape. I would say, what is it? The skyline. This is the most impressive skyline that I think I've ever seen in the world.
And can I add to that? If you look at this skyline, you will notice that if you're going to make a painting, there's no dead spots from the water up, right?
Right.
That is city engineers. We did a 20-minute documentary called Smart Metropolis.
Okay.
And we went in and we met, and also Lights Up Chongqing.
Yeah.
We met the people that light these buildings up at night.
Amazing.
They take a computer-generated image of this and say, we got a dark spot here.
Right.
We need to light it up. Or building ABC, which could be a building of, let's just say, local residents, not necessarily a building. Let's put some lights. If you look over there, these are condos. That's where I live over there.
Yeah.
Those lights on most of those buildings, besides the business ones, didn't exist. But they understand that if we light up this city at night, well, you saw what happened. We came over the bridge, thousands of people there.
Oh, unbelievable scenes.
Those people, they buy coffees, they go out for meals. It's not like, okay, we have a sporting event once a month and we hope we get a big crowd in.
Yeah.
This is nightly. And this is this is the nighttime economy, and this is a country that says, okay, let's light up our buildings. Why? People are interested. They're fascinated by it.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, again, going back to that, ability for China, that's another shift that we've seen in recent years is there was a time in China where they were a copycat nation, where they again, here's a good product. Okay, cool. We're gonna learn how to make the same product. Yeah. We can replicate that. But over the years, China's manufacturing became so advanced that they said, well, you know what? Why don't we, instead of just making your stuff, Apple, why don't we start inventing our own versions of the iPhone, right? And that's where you see the Xiaomi and the Huawei and, the numerous other, Chinese manufacturing brands. So it's really exciting because, China has shifted into this great innovator. And I think that's something that a lot of people still misunderstand about China in the West is they think, oh, China doesn't know how to innovate, they only copycat. Again, you can't have a city this beautiful and, the way that they've built this, the infrastructure, and not be able to innovate. But now we're really going to prepare, I think, in the future, 2026 and beyond, it's all about China. It's going to be continuing to be a big thing.
And the gig economy is very important. The side gig economy here, it does drive a lot of jobs here. And also it gives people hope, like, just recently, this is the motorcycle city of China. Yeah. It has one of the largest motorcycle events every year. Last year, we had success. ZX Moto, it won a championships in some of the superbike competition here in the later part of 2025 and early 2026. Broke headlines. It was of a guy, a Chongqing guy that worked on engines in his garage. Not a university graduate, took on the superbikes, outperformed the Japanese and the Europeans to win at a race. That's awesome. Again, that just opens it up. So we do see a country that is heavily, massively educated people to the point where they get pretty stressed out about it during this time of year, the Gaokao or something around this part of the year. So that is also a level of stress. But then again, it's showing a society that says, yes, maybe we go extreme on the education, but maybe let's just take it off a bit and let's see what else is under that. Let's see can this country stand on its own 2 feet without, and nothing wrong with dumping lots of money into educating your population, but the gig economy, that economy, people that used to be forgotten in other parts of the world are really well respected. Some of them become party members of the CPC party members here.
For sure.
And that is important. It's a country that has over 100 million party members, and those party members have grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, and cousins. So I think everybody's got a piece in this country, whether there's an understanding or misunderstanding that, you're going to have a relative or somebody that's in that party, and that party is what brings you this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to kind of really drive that point home, there was a really great article written in a German newspaper from an author by the name of Michael Schumann. Now, Michael Schumann, he's actually sits on the German, he's actually works with like the German foreign affairs as far as investments overseas, and really travels a lot, spent a lot of time in China visiting here, really trying to stir that German investment around the world. And he came out with a front page newspaper article in one of Germany's most important newspapers announcing that it is his belief that China is the future, and that for the German economy, which don't forget is the largest economy in Europe, that they're going to have to partner with China in the future. We should be embracing Chinese technology. We should be having more partnerships with China. And it's a significant shift because Germany is the leader of Europe. And it is awesome to see this kind of new narrative emerge. And again, I think so much of that has changed, Alex, in the last few years. I mean, even where we're seeing new polls in the United States, you know, the youth, people under the age of 25, much more favorable opinion of China than the older generation, you know, who are meant to believe, you know, still, I mean, it's amazing how some of these older generations still think that this is a land, you know, a country with, you know, Chairman Mao suits and bicycles. And it's, but the new generation, right? They're on social media. They're seeing videos like this and they say, this is not a, you know, country that we can ignore.
Interesting stuff, Cyrus. Once again, it's always a pleasure to stand in front of the skyline of Chongqing here.
My pleasure, my brother. I appreciate you, you know, and everybody who's been watching you know, our show, Let's Talk Geopolitics. You know, Alex and I, we've been friends for 6 years. You know, amazing, you know, Alex, you know, you reached out to me when I had 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. We've been close friends. And, you know, what's fun is, you know, you develop these great relationships, you know, with other content creators. And you know, it's just amazing to see, you know, our stories continue to evolve. You know, China's become a very big part of both of our lives. You know, between us, you know, we've been traveling to China for 40 years. And, you know, we've had a lot of great memories here. You know, we really understand, you know, what, you know, how important this city of Chongqing is, but also the country of China. And I think the, you know, you can just feel the energy. You know, I mean, there's so many people. You saw it earlier in the video today. We're walking around, we're talking. And everybody, if you made it to this point of the video, just want to say you could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here with us on YouTube and other social platforms. So thank you for your incredible support. And make sure you come to China because it is the future.